Hi everybody and welcome back to Exotics of the World TV. Now in this episode we are going to walk you through step by step how to do a basic little bioactive setup. Now the species that we have chosen in this episode is for our mourning geckos. The enclosure that we're going to be working with in this episode is a ProRep 45 tool by 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. So it is an extremely small little enclosure, but we'll show you how to utilize every single piece of space within it. Now, a lot of our customers have asked, look, can we just kind of like dull it down and do an extremely basic little bioactive enclosure? Because most people online do these absolutely extravagant enclosures, which for some people, it might be a little bit unattainable. So as you'll see in the video, we did make a little bit of a mistake right at the start. So if you know what that mistake is, please let us know in the comment section down below. If you don't, we'll obviously tell you right at the end. But hey, anyway, without further ado, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the content. So this is our little boring drab enclosure in question. If you're already using a pre-existing enclosure like we have, it's always really important to give that enclosure a really good scrub just to get any muck, any debris out of the way so you can start afresh. We always start by using bio balls or clay balls in the bottoms of our enclosures. The reason why we use these clay balls in the bottom of our bioactive enclosures as it creates a reservoir of water which moistens the substrate from below and helps to create a natural moisture gradient within the enclosure. The large surface area within each ball also provides the ideal habitat for beneficial bacteria which will neutralize potentially harmful waste products. Once your clay balls are in and you've popped your substrate divider in between, so your substrate divider is going to be the thing that separates the substrate from your bio balls. Now the reason why this is important is so that the substrate does not fall down and in between the bio balls. As you can see in the video, we have already started to add the substrate into this enclosure. Now, this is a pre-mixed substrate. So we just basically use a substrate from the previous enclosure build. The substrate that we had, it's kind of like a mixture of topsoil, of cocoa fiber, of the Arcadia earth mix. I believe as well that we've also got some Lucky Reptile jungle mix in there, and also the ProRep BioLife. We would always recommend using a mixture of substrates in your enclosures. So the different substrates are going to have different levels of vitamins and minerals that are going to help your plants and your arthropods thrive. If you don't want to use all of those different kinds of mixtures of substrates, the two that we would definitely recommend using would be the Arcadia Earth Mix and the ProRep BioLife. We feel that these two substrates really complement each other. So the items that the Earth Mix is lacking is made up in the ProRep BioLife and vice versa. In this video, because it's going to be kind of like a basic attempt at a little mini bioactive setup, we're not going for a like fancy background or anything like that. We're literally just going to use a cork tile background. Now, I really like using these cork tile backgrounds for multiple reasons. Reason number one, it's quite easy and fairly cost effective to have a nice naturalistic looking background. And reason number two, if you're going to be using creeping plants, such as like Ficus familiar or anything like that, the roots have got a really good background so they can really dig their roots into. And I'm hoping at this point, if any of you have seen the mistake, please let us know. So once the background in, it is then time to start looking for our decor. Now the first piece that we're going to add in is the talawa wood. Now, I really like working with talawa wood because it's fairly inexpensive. You get quite a lot for what you pay for it. It's extremely mold resistant and very humid tolerant. It's typically used in things like fish tanks and stuff like that, so you know it's going to be pretty good when it comes to humidity. So starting off with our first plant, we are going to be using a Maranta, also known as the prayer plant. Now, this plant is going to do really well as a background piece, so when it grows in, it's going to really fill out this enclosure. Good thing with Marantas as well, if you keep on top of like the trimming, they don't get too large. Also with Marantas, when they flower, they have these really nice kind of like whitey, purpley kind of flowers on them, making them quite visually catching as well. And those really nice broad leaves are going to provide really good, nice refuges for our little mourning geckos. Now the next plant that we're going to have in there is the arrowhead vine. So we're going to be using this pink syngonium. Again, we're going to be using it as a background plant. So this has got really nice like tall kind of like stems on it. The leaves aren't too big unlike the Maranta, but they're still going to give these animals really nice coverage. Another reason why we've used this plant is because of its striking pink colour. So it's going to break up the monotony of just kind of like greens and browns in the enclosure. And then we're going to be adding some cork bark in here. Now, cork bark is a tried and tested piece of decor. It's widely used because of its naturalistic look and again for its tiny little refuges it provides for the species in question. Now again, we're just going to be using this pink quill bromeliad just to break up like kind of that monotony of kind of like greens and stuff, just so it's got a little bit of vibrancy and colour in the enclosure. Next up we have the nerve plant. Now this we're going to use as a foreground piece. Now with nerve plants you need to make sure that you keep on top of trimming, because once this little guy has lots of light it is gonna grow exponentially. So just make sure that you keep on top of like your trimming. Then we're going to be adding some sphagnum moss. Now this is just going to be able to maintain humidity in the enclosure, and as well we're kind of using it for aesthetic purposes in this build. The sphagnum moss as well is going to create a really nice little refuge for our arthropods of choice, so our springtails and our woodlice, but we'll put a pin in that one and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. Next up for another piece of hardscape is Redmore. So again, very similar to the Talawa. It's relatively cheap and extremely mold resistant. I really like using Redmore in these enclosures because it always comes and it's like really nice and twisted. So I like to call like the twisted vines wood with character. And that's what you're going to want to have inside your bioactive enclosures. You're not really going to want to put stuff in there that's like straight lines. When I first started doing bioactive enclosures, I was always told nature does not have straight lines, and I've always carried that moving forward with our builds. Now, one of the most overlooked pieces of your enclosure is in fact your leaf litter. Now, leaf litter, again, very similar to the sphagnum moss, it is going to be very important for your overall well-being of your arthropods and isopods. Now, as the leaf litter decays, it's going to create a perfect meal source for your isopods. However, before it decays, it's going to be really good at help maintaining the humidity in your enclosure by locking in the moisture at the surface level of the enclosure. Moving on to our isopods of choice. Now in this build we have decided to use granulated isopods. Just for no other reason, they're a fairly hardy species, they're widely available within the UK hobby. And as well, sometimes you get them and they're like really nice like colours or like little yellow flecks on them. They're also a fairly active species as well, so even during the day you will be able to see them out and about in the enclosure doing little isopod things. Next up, we're going to add even tinier little isopods. We are going to be adding our springtails. Now these guys are going to help maintain the enclosure alongside our woodlice. So these are going to eat any like feces, they're going to eat any mold, that type of thing. Now it's time for the big old spray down. So once you've built your enclosure, give it a good spray down with water. This is going to really help your plants bed in, and also a nice little boost for your isopods. In this build, we have used the Arcadia Shade Dweller 7%, the Lucky Reptile Halogen Sun Mini 50 watt bulbs, a microclimate dimming thermostat, and the Exoteric Terra Sky. Now, I really like using the Terra Sky because it has that really cool mode on it where it kind of like simulates cloud coverage and rainstorms and stuff like that. So if you've got a misting system like rigged up to yours, you could really have a fun play about. And now we're just going to add the final touches. So food bowl in there. So in this one we're using the Reptizoo magnetic food dish. And now it's time to start adding our little guys into the enclosure. I'll be quiet now until the end of the video, but please enjoy watching these little guys explore the enclosure. And that's about it from us here at Exotics of the World TV. Now, thank you very, very much for stopping and watching this video. Again, this is a small little basic bioactive enclosure, but it'll hopefully get that appetite going for you so you can then go out and create bigger and better bioactives. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give us a like, share, subscribe, and click the bell icon as well. Also, as I said right at the start, did you guys see the mistake that we made right at the start of the video? No? Well, if you did, if you commented, perfect. The mistake was that we forgot to put the background back in. So we got all the substrate, all the clay balls in and whatnot. And then, yeah, we just neglected to put the background back in. But hopefully with a little bit of movie magic, we can edit it so it doesn't look too bad. But yeah, anyway, that's been me. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. See you later.